Welcome back, everyone. If you don't know who it is, it's the president, Sean Williams. Welcome back to the Safe Room. And today, I got a special guest with me. If you were there at the first ever Black Brilliance Conference, you probably know this name. You ever heard of this phrase? Black boy be beautiful, black girl be brave, black. I got the one and only Akeem Lloyd, but he goes by Akeem Speaks. Akeem, welcome to the show.
Man, thanks for having me, Sean. It's been a long time. It feels like it's been a long time since that amazing conference that you all put on. But I remember it like it was yesterday, man. The energy that you all gave me, the love that was shared in that space. It was really a beautiful moment in my life.
Yeah, you were an amazing keynote speaker as well. I know to this day, people still use that quote every time when I was in Downtown. I wore the shirt. They're like, "Oh yeah, it's that Akeem guy. Yo, that was a very powerful thing you did." I'm like, "Yeah, for sure." Thank you, thank you for joining us. I know times are really tough right now, so I'm really glad that you're able to make it.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you for asking and for reaching out, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah. So for the people who don't know Akeem that well, he was raised by his grandparents from Atlantic City, New Jersey. He went through a couple of trials and tribulations. You went through a lot of struggles, just trying to find yourself. And you found that within mentorship. And through there, you really created an impact on everyone. There's such an inspiration. You became the first person in your family to graduate from college. It's also the first person in your family to receive a master's. That's Black excellence right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, you just kind of just kept going and going, and you wanted to give back to the youth. You started your own nonprofit organization called A Leadership Journey, which we will talk about later. But yeah, I'm just really glad you're here, and you ready to get started?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
If you did not get to check my previous video, the link's up top. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and let's get into it. So I just have a couple of questions for you today. So the first question, obviously, we talked about mentorship and how, you kind of started there. So if you want to take the time to describe what was the first feeling when you decided to make that switch to, kind of look for mentors and start to find yourself.
Of course. Hey, Sean, that's a great question. Let's start off with, so the switch for me happened, actually, it happened about junior year high school, senior high school. But before I even touch on what happened after the switch, I want to make sure that I'm sharing what it was like before mentors came into my life. Prior to me allowing a mentor to be a mentor, I grew up in the city of Atlantic City, where I didn't allow adults to get close to me. And I kept my guard up, I kept my shield up. And it wasn't until 9th grade where this man at the Boys and Girls Club, he asked me, how am I doing? Now, mind you, I wasn't just letting any adults get close to me. I wasn't allowing male figures to get close to me just because of my experience with male figures being in my life and not being consistent. And so there was a sort of a trigger there if a male tried to be, relatively anything close to me. But he asked me how I was doing. And I like immediately went into, safe mode. I'm good, right?
Yeah.
But every day I continued to show up, he would ask me, how am I doing? How am I doing? And every day I was safe mode. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Until one day, about a year and a half later, right? I finally said, it took a year and a half, but
Mm-hmm.
every day I went to the Boys and Girls Club, he would ask me how I'm doing. After a year and a half, it finally hit me like, yo, this guy really cares about me. Like
Mm.
he really wants to know how I'm doing. And I remember walking to the Boys and Girls Club, and as soon as he asked me, man, I just laid it on him,
Yeah.
told him how I was feeling, told him what was going on inside the home, outside the home, and he listened. And from there, his interactions with me changed because I allowed him to pour into me. And that's when mentorship started. But because I was still new to the process, I was still stuck in old ways. I allowed him to have access, but I was still stuck in old ways in regards to who I let myself get close to.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until about a year of interacting with him and seeing how he remained consistent, how he remained supportive, that it opened up my understanding of what mentorship was and what people who cared about me really wanted to do. That's when the flip switched. And I was like, oh, people who actually do love me, people who actually do care about me, are actually willing to go above and beyond to try to make sure that they're supporting me in different ways. And then from there, man, I was the one who was looking for mentors.
Yeah. Wow. That's really powerful. Like, and for some males, it's just some of the simplest things, just asking, how are you doing? And again, like for your experience, you might have not had like the best experience with male figures. And, for some people, maybe that's why, when they grow up, they may show a level of like toxic masculinity, maybe they want to be loved, but they just don't show it in the way that you probably would think. They think that it's wrong to probably express this emotion, but it's only
Mm-hmm.
because you're not able to peel back and understand their narrative, and really they just want to be loved, they just want to be part of something. But again, it's about how you approach them and actually understanding what they're going through, because a lot of people like to make assumptions, and that's probably the dangerous stigma that could be placed into a black man. So that's
Yeah,
really powerful on what you said.
definitely, bro. And that toxic masculinity runs deep. And because because I wasn't aware of it, right? I didn't even know what toxic masculinity was. It was it was all it, I had already became a part of it, and what was normal to me was actually me redistributing what toxic masculinity had taught me without ever like telling me this is what it was. um,
Mhm.
and and it was through his practices that I still practice today, right? To your point, these young brothers actually want to be loved. And I say this to young people all the time. I don't think I've ever met, and I've met a lot of young people. I've never met a young person, no matter how hard they was, no matter what gang they was in, didn't want to feel loved.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? What it looks like, what it looks like is different for those different kind of brothers. But the idea of 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 having people who say they care about you, having people who want to be around you, having people who say they want to support you, that idea of love, everybody wants.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really great. So from that, you kind of carried it yourself, and now you're kind of giving back to you. And now you're being their mentors. recently I've seen you on Instagram Live, and you've been having like a lot of sessions where like you've allowed you to express themselves, whether it's been through spoken word, music, art. So like, what was like the inspiration on that? What made you feel like you had to like create a platform to let everyone kind of feel open to just share their thoughts?
So specifically, right, the idea of creating spaces where people can share their thoughts and share their art is something that started way before the Instagram lives, right? That that came about after like me wanting to create spaces for people started when I was in college. I was a freshman and I had just got to college, and these events were happening. And some of the events I really enjoyed, but I was like, who's putting on these events? And when I finally met the lady, who was a Black woman, uh, I sat down with her, and she just kind of talked through how to create events on campus and how to, market and engage people on campus. So it was that support of educating me how to go about the process with now, or entangled with me already feeling like there are there are millions of stories that are unheard every day, that
Mm-hmm.
go unheard every day. Already tangled with this idea that I really want people to be able to express themselves, because when we don't, it can play a part on, how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world, because of how much we hold in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's when it started. It started in college, but lately, since COVID, what you saw was an interest in using my platform as a poet and as an artist to just create an opportunity for other poet and artists to share during this time, right? We do we do a physical open mic here in Providence, Rhode Island, where people actually come to sit down, eat, joke, laugh, and support the art. And
Mm-hmm.
so, National Poetry Awareness Month was about to start in April. So I said, you know what? Let me, start an open mic, get that going, because one, it would pay homage to National Poetry Awareness Month. Two, it would give people an opportunity to continue to share their work. And then three, for me, on a more selfish tip, like I needed some creative outlet that
Mm-hmm.
that was more than just the writing and reading I was doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
I went live. I shared with people that I was going live, and I wanted to invite them to come spit. And slowly but surely, it just started picking up. And before I knew it, I was going live every day, and I did that for 2 months straight. But what what started the interest in giving people a platform is deeper than open mic, bro. Like that goes back to me growing up and feeling like I didn't have a voice, growing up being silent in a household full of people, growing up and then starting to understand why there were other young people who were like me, who also were silent, but
Mm-hmm.
were growing up in a household full of people. And then starting to realize that every day a young person wakes up, goes throughout the most challenging of of times, and never says a word about it,
Yeah.
and will wear that mask proudly because that's what they've been taught to do, or that's what they know how to do, because it's a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that 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 wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to just allow or excuse me, it wasn't enough to accept that young people were just like going throughout their day-to-day lives, carrying so much weight on on their their shoulders. And so that's when it really started, because I knew how it was for me to grow up in silence. And then I started to realize that I wasn't the only one, that there was, young people everywhere who were also growing up in silence. And when I started to tap into mental emotional wellness, then I was able to connect the dots, because it made sense how young people who grow up silent and view themselves as not worthy also fall into hopelessness, also create, not create, but also experience high anxiety, high levels of stress, right?
Mhm.
High levels of mental and emotional stress. And it's because they've been holding on for everything internally for so long that it starts to impact them mentally.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to put it. So, I want to ask you, so with everything happening with the pandemic, so what do you do to keep yourself busy during this time?
Mm. During the pandemic, man, I actually I actually was able to do pretty well when I first started off of slowing down, right? Like even having to operate a nonprofit, even having to operate Akeem Speaks, my business, and do all these other things that I was doing prior to COVID, I found myself slowing down. And that in itself was a blessing, because pre-COVID, I was like on the go,
Hmm.
right? I had a schedule that I stuck to, and I was just on the move. But when COVID hit, I wasn't able to do some of the things that I would have been doing on a day-to-day basis. And so the open mics that I do had to stop. The game nights that I do had to stop. Driving Lyft and Uber had to stop. Leaving the house to go to an actual workplace had to stop. So like 5 different things that I would do on a day-to-day basis that all ended because of COVID. And so to maximize or to utilize that time, now I was able to wake up, take my time. I didn't have to rush to go anywhere. I didn't have to
Hmm.
rush to do anything. And so I started filling that time with reading. I started reading more. I started writing more. And I'm not just talking about poetry, I'm talking about journaling, just writing more, right?
Hmm.
These are 2 things that I've been wanting to do on a more consistent basis for the last 5 years. And I've been and COVID allowed me to do that. A couple other things that I've been doing is working out still,
Yeah.
and like downtime, bro. Like, man, I've been relaxing. Like, so between the IG open mic lives to reading to writing to working out, I that's it, man. Like, not obviously, but for those who don't know, because I have the nonprofit, there's still things that we need to do for that.
Of course.
Um, and I've been doing it. I just haven't put a whole lot of pressure on myself to do it. You feel me?
You really shouldn't put that much pressure on yourself. You want to like take things at your own pace.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty much what I did all COVID, man. I moved at my own pace, bro.
That's good. That's good. And like honestly, I wish I could say the same, but honestly, I've been on the go. I think it's slowed down for me too. And I think also with this whole pandemic, it's been a moment of like self-reflection for everyone. Everyone just gets to slow down. And I feel
Mm,
like more people are realizing what they want to do, because the fact that, if you're a young student going to university or high school, if you're a young adult that has a job and has to do all that stuff, you are focused on that, but your mind's so clogged with other things that you can't really figure out what things you actually want to do for yourself. You're only focusing what's actually needed to do, but what do you want to do? for yourself. So I feel like this pandemic has been like a good just kind of like break and relaxation for everyone to just kind of like think about what they want to do. And I see some people, they're pursuing it now. So like I hear a lot of my friends saying, yo, I'm doing this now. I've really cleared my head and I know what I want to do moving forward. So
Mm,
I think this pandemic, although it's had its ups and downs, you know, it's kind of been something where everyone could just kind of just relax.
yeah, yeah. And that right there is a beautiful thing, man. You know, like there was a lot of talk on social media going backwards and forwards between people who would share content and information, you know, things such as if you don't come out of COVID with your business plan, with your project, with your book, with your this, with your that, then what did you do? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was and then the flip side was the content and the information being shared by people who said, yo, if you don't come out of COVID with the next project, the next book, the next, you know, business plan, like that's okay. That's okay. Because if you need a time, you know, to just like gather yourself, ground yourself, heal, whatever the case may be, then do that. Like don't get too caught up in the hype of people saying, you know, this is your time to like come out of COVID with a business plan and et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And so that back and forth to me, um, I was really like for me, I was really hoping that people who read that content didn't internalize it so much so that they found themselves in a position, you know, overworking themselves, or found themselves in a position not working enough. Me personally, I felt like if you came out of if you were to come out of COVID without your next business or project, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you like waste time. It doesn't mean that you didn't do
Yeah.
anything. I don't know what folks was doing, but sometimes like that slowing down piece, that waking up and kind of going throughout your day, like that's important too. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I just thought that was a real like rough time for like internalizing social media content for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you mentioned that you run a nonprofit, and one of them is a leadership journey. So, if you want to like explain that a little bit more into detail.
Yeah, for sure. A leadership journey is a youth travel and leadership nonprofit organization that serves young people ages 13 to 18 of color from marginalized identities, and we provide equitable access for young people to travel and participate in cultural exploration internationally and domestically, using travel as a vehicle to address mental and emotional wellness, to develop and strengthen leadership skills and understanding of self and to strengthen self-awareness and an understanding of global citizenship and Ubuntu. And so these young people who apply to participate in a leadership journey can be as young as 13, and they can be with us all the way up until they're 18 or graduating from high school. And when they do apply and they get accepted, they get in, they then start their process of educational workshops that they participate in and that they lead. And so these young people are tasked with the opportunity to lead workshops around injustice and equity, right? Um, like racism, you name it. Uh, we support their research, we support their development, their critical thinking, their analytical thinking, and then we bring in professionals to also help add perspective. And while we're doing all of that, we're also making sure that we are providing them with healthier resources that they can implement for healthier practices. As I mentioned, mental and emotional awareness is and always will be important to me. So we make that a big focus for leadership journey, because we remind young people, uh, whether you become, a community activist or a global activist, or even community oriented, or a global citizen, that it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of energy. And when you commit to this kind of work, you have to be able to take care of yourself. You have to be able to know what works for you and when. And so we implement that piece. And at the end of the year, we develop capstones for them to focus on, and then we travel. And so we are in year 4. The first 2 years, we've taken young people to South Africa, the first 2 cohorts. And then our 3rd cohort, last year, we took our group to Kenya. We were actually supposed to be in Ghana right now. Like, we were supposed to be in Ghana right now.
Oh, man.
With our 4th cohort. But, COVID had other plans. But yeah, so it was like a big push for providing young people who look like us, right, me and you, the same educational opportunities that their white peers were getting.
Yeah, that sounds amazing right there. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I know, and I feel like I want to talk about this if you're comfortable about it. I want to talk about all the protests that have been happening in the United States with the whole George Floyd incident, with everything that's transpired. Like, what is your biggest takeaway from all the protests, from, and even before the protests, from the tragic death of George Floyd to just everything now?
Biggest takeaway? I don't know if there's a biggest takeaway, but there's a couple of different ones. I'll start with one: protest works.
Yeah.
Protest works in the fashion that we saw it this year, in the fashion that we saw it in 2015, and in the fashion that our ancestors, fought for. Like, when people come together and voice concerns for the same concern, it has a tremendous impact. And I just feel like this was an example of what happens when you really mean no justice, no peace. For over a week, people from all over came together for the same concern. And that to me was powerful. And so the first thing was protest work. The second thing I believe that I'm taking away from this is just how important it is to really stand for what you believe. Like, it's not something that's new to me, but as I watched people on social media, television, etc., people who I wouldn't even known that they would be willing to even put their livelihoods on the line like this, stand up and speak out. I thought that was very powerful as well. So it matters when a group, what's that quote? It goes, I'm forgetting the actual quote word for word, but as soon as I remember it, I'm gonna share it. And that's what it was for me, man. Even though it was a larger scale of people, that quote is what really stuck with me.
I totally agree. The protests at first, like the first thing I saw with the protests is that this, like, you could clearly see the ones who were there that wanted to, like, demand justice for the situation, but then there was also people that were trying to take part of the situation for the wrong reasons. And, you know, it kind of felt like people are just using this as a mask to kind of cover their own insecurities because they didn't want to express on the situation because they felt like if you weren't agreeing on the side of no justice, no peace, then something was wrong with you or you just weren't really educating yourself.
Yeah.
And like I feel just when the protests just kept going and going, you know, you see this unison, like everyone was just coming together and you know, like just a couple days ago, like in different parks in different like states, different places and everything, like everyone was just so together. They were there for one reason. There was no conflict, there was no division between everyone. And you know, whatever, even like on social media too, just like you said, sharing content, not just with the whole pandemic, supporting Black-owned businesses, really important. You know, everyone's really have taken the time to express themselves. And another thing I want that people to take away from this, hopefully when this is over, is consistency. We don't want this to just be one monumental thing and then kind of just fade back into
Right.
a normal state because everyone's human and we all deserve to be safe in our communities and wherever we live. You know, there shouldn't be a sense of police brutality, especially against the Black community, where you're waking up every morning, you don't even know if you're gonna make it to the next day.
Yeah. Um, and so that quote was, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
Mm.
But I agree with you, man. This can't end here, right? And justice technically has not been served even for George Floyd yet. Um, Not until that they have been convicted and sentenced. The first step was taken. It was it was a needed first step, you know, just to let the world know that we were going to hold these officers accountable. But now the next step is you know, fingers crossed and prayers up that they actually get convicted. And let's also keep in mind, right, that his case isn't the only case that's fresh, right? Within a matter of a short time frame, Ahmaud Arbery, right, his death,
Mm-hmm.
his murder, and then Breonna Taylor. Let's not forget to also mention and say her as well, right? Like her family also still needs justice. And so until these folks are convicted, it has to be consistent. The pressure has to continue to be put on, and you know, yeah, like we have to apply pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. So for everyone that's listening, what is one thing that you want everyone to like carry with? You know, just kind of like whether it's just to get through the day, to get through everything that's happening around the world, or if they're striving to create their own business or like they're want to create something. Like what is one thing you want people to take away?
Do what makes you happy. This life isn't promised, man. This time that we have on earth isn't always promised, and we can get caught up in things that you know will make us mad, create frustration, bitter, or jealousy, or etc. etc. And reality is, a lot of that stuff isn't isn't as big as we make it. Um, Man, I'm like getting emotional just thinking about this, but like that's really one thing that I would tell people, bro, is like be happy, man. Do what makes you happy, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna pray that everybody who's listening, um, and just people who are in our lives, live for as long as they want to, as long as they can. But like man, you know, just to know that there's somebody out there who doesn't look like me, who would rather see me gone. Life too short, bro.
Yeah.
Like life too short.
I get it. I totally get it. You know, like one thing like I talk about on this podcast is just self-expression, because, you know, you shouldn't let anyone really critique your style or critique the way you think, because what you think is and what you believe in is your greatest weapon. Because, you know, with the potential that you have inside of you, that could lead to greatness. That's going to lead to something beautiful at the end. So like that's how I kind of came up with the concept of the safe room right here. It's a place where you can think for yourself, but also being able to listen as well, because I think that's a very important aspect, to listen, because there's a lot of people that hear things, but, you know, they don't want to take the time to actually understand where the other person is coming from. But
Mm.
yeah, definitely, I totally agree with you. Be happy on with what you want to do.
Yeah, man. Just literally, whatever that is, man. Just make sure that you are keeping your joy up. Don't allow anybody to steal your joy, to take your joy away. That's just one thing that I would share with people to take away is do what makes you happy. And then two, and this will be the last thing, is uh, fight for what you believe in.
Yeah,
Fight for what you believe in.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think that's all we have. Thank you so much, Akeem, for coming today. You know, I mean, again,
For
like
sure.
we both have busy schedules, so it was really great to have you on the show.
Nah, no doubt, Sean. Thank you, man. What you're doing is amazing. I applaud you. I commend you for everything that you've done already. I will pray that you continue to do what you do and to do it at your very best. Please know that you can reach out to me whenever for whatever.
Just adding on to what Akeem said, he said that Toronto is a very special place to his heart and the Black Brilliance Group, and just to keep doing what we're doing. And I really appreciate all the words Akeem has said. I'm glad that he came to the show, and, you know, it was just really nice having him as a guest. So thank you guys for tuning into the Safe Room. It's your boy Sean. I'll see you guys soon.